This spring, Coke asked shareholders to approve a magnanimous stock option program for its executives. Asked about it by the press after the vote, you said the program was excessive. Yet you did not tell the world prior to the Coke shareholders meeting.
The proposal was made by a shareholder who had owned shares for a long time and was opposed to the option program. His calculations, and I probably should have said it, but his calculations as the dilution were wildly off, and we did not care to get into a discussion of that or anything else. But we did talk, or I did talk, to Muhtar Kent, and I informed him that we were going to abstain. I told him that we admired enormously the Coca-Cola company, we admired the management, and we thought the compensation plan, although it was very similar to a great many plans, was excessive. And Muhtar and I had a very good discussions right here in Omaha, as a matter of fact, as well as a couple of telephone discussions. And then immediately after the vote, I announced that we had abstained and gave the reasons that we thought the plan was excessive. And I think that in terms of having an effect on the Coca-Cola compensation practices, as well as maybe having an effect on some other compensation practices, that is the most effective, was the most effective way of behaving for Berkshire. We made a very clear statement about the excessiveness of the plan, and at the same time, we in no way went to war with Coca-Cola. We have no desire to go to war with Coca-Cola, and we did not endorse some calculations that were wildly inaccurate and joined forces with someone that I had really no contact with. I mean, I received several letters in the mail after they'd first been given to the press. So I think you have to be, I don't think going to war is a very good idea in most situations. And I think if you're going to join forces in going to war with somebody, you better be very sure about what that alliance might mean. So I think the best result for the Coca-Cola company was achieved by our abstention, and we will see what happens in terms of compensation between now and the next meeting of Coke. Charlie?
I think you handled the whole situation very well.
And Charlie remains vice chairman. Charlie, incidentally, Charlie was the only one with whom I talked over the vote before, or the abstention before I did it. I called Charlie and told him about the plan, and we agreed on the course of action. I should point out one thing, and in fairness to David Winters, who led the war, he took figures from the Coca-Cola proxy statement, so it's hard to fault him for that. But for those of you who would like to know how to think about calculating dilution, Coca-Cola has regularly repurchased the shares that are issued through options, and the share count has thereby come down just a small bit at Coca-Cola, not anywhere near as much as if they hadn't issued as many shares, though, and repurchased shares. But Coca-Cola has a plan that involves 500 million shares, and they say in the annual report that they expect to issue these over approximately 4 years, and then they have a further calculation between performance shares and option shares, but I'll leave that out. Make this a little simpler. And that's a lot of shares. Let's assume for the moment that Coca-Cola is selling around $40 a share now, which it is, and that all the options are issued at 40, and that when they're exercised, we'll say the stock is $60. Now, at that point, there has been a $10 billion transfer of value, $20 a share times 500 million shares, a $10 billion transfer of value. Now, the company, when that is done, gets a tax deduction and for $10 billion, and at the present tax rates, that would result in $3.5 billion of less tax. So if you take $20 billion of proceeds from exercise of the options and you add $3.5 billion of tax savings, the Coca-Cola Company receives $23.5 billion. And if they should buy in the stock at $60 a share, which it would be selling for then, they would be able to buy 391,666,666 shares. So, in effect, the Coca-Cola Company net would be out a little over 108 million shares, and that's on a base of 4 billion. So the dilution, assuming all the proceeds from the option exercise and the tax refund were used to buy shares, the dilution would be 108 million shares on 44.4 billion, or about 2.5%. And I don't like dilution, and I don't like 2.5% dilution. But it's a far cry from the numbers that we're getting tossed around. It's a long explanation, but I've never seen the math written about. I mean, I've seen people throwing out claims and all of that. And you can change my supposition from 60 to 55 or 65. It doesn't change things very much.